Welcome, everybody. I'm Mark Marquette, and so glad that you're here to stay curious from the Hyatt Place Hotel Studios inside the American Space Museum here in downtown Titusville. I have with me aspiring space author Gary Gilbert. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome, Gary. Good to
Thank
have
you.
you here. We've talked a few times before. Gary is soliciting women in space for a book that he is wanting to publish about all careers in space to inspire the next generation of space workers. And Gary, we're going to help find some women out there for you that want to tell their story, and we'll tell you all about that. But glad you're here. What do you think of our museum?
There's a lot of stuff here that I never thought I'd actually be able to get close to it, but it's really nice. It really fills a lot of dreams that I had. You know, one of my main books that I kept, it was "You Will Go to the Moon." It's published by I think Dr. Seuss Books published
okay.
it, and I still have the original copy. But you know, being here, seeing some of the stuff, it's just been really awesome.
Well, Gary's a local person here, and what we have behind us here is a Sabre F-86 jet that Mike Killian. Hey, Mike, out there, he took this photograph, and over Gary's head, would you make us disappear a second there, Marty? We'll see this picture again. But there is the Atlas V rocket from yesterday being launched with the new weather satellite. And this has been a dream of Mike Killian's for years, to get a rocket launch and a classic jet in the same photo. And we're going to be talking to him soon. I'll be in touch with you, Mike Killian, to brag about more of your wonderful pictures here. But Doug Matthews is the pilot and owner of this Sabre, and took 10 years to restore it. What a shot, huh?
Yeah,
we'll,
really,
we'll see a
definitely.
little bit about that here in just a second. But we wanted to tell everyone that we're pleased to partner with this beautiful hotel, the Hyatt Place on Route 1, right beside State Route 405 that goes into Kennedy's Visitors Center complex. And the Boeing offices are near that too. They have a beautiful fifth floor launch window, and we'll be taking you inside and out as we partnered with Robert and Dana there, the manager and assistant manager. They'll take good care of you as we are going to hold some events there throughout the year here at this beautiful Hyatt Place, where you want to stay on your next visit to the Space Coast. There's that beautiful picture there. Do that again, Marty. Well, we'll see it here in a second. Yeah, off of the Atlantic Ocean there at the bottom, and what a shot, Mike Killian. The timing of the jet, the rocket, everything. Of course, Mike's in another airplane, and he'll do anything to get a picture. A barrel roll, inverted V, whatever it takes. He's there, and we'll be talking to him soon. We got some space history. We want to talk about our auction, March 5th, to remind everybody this Saturday at 12 o'clock. Register online at theamericanspacemuseum.com. There's a tab up at the top for our 19th auction, 400 lots, over $200,000 worth of memorabilia that you can own. We had Chuck Jeffrey, our collection analyst, on there yesterday's show, and we talked about some of the things that Triple T has in it. Marty's got a jacket in there. So check out those lots by going to our website. You'll see the click at the top, and they'll take you through everything. And there is that beautiful shot of Mike Killian, Killian, there in the bottom left there. Just a gorgeous day. Did you see the launch, Gary?
No, actually, I didn't.
All right. But Gary, we celebrate the shuttles of every month, and we've got 10 shuttles this month. And since we're going to be talking about women in space, it's interesting to note that 8 women are on these 10 missions of the shuttle this month. There's 51 men and 8 women. Okay, so and that's what you want to do, is inspire more women to get involved in all areas.
Yes, that's correct.
Good. Well, we're here's 4 women that were in space at the same time. They're floating around in the International Space Station, and we're going to have Hugh Harris, the voice of NASA, on here tomorrow as a guest to talk about a couple of these shuttle missions, women in space, and some other things. Well, Gary, today in history at about 1:30 in the morning, to be exact, 1:47, our good friend in Pennsylvania, Tom Usiak, had this remote camera hooked up to take the shot of the Endeavour launch with one of the longest missions, folks, 16 days, 15 hours, 16 and a half days. It stood as the longest mission for a while. With these astronauts, Steve Oswald Gary, was the commander, his third flight, Bill Gregory. Tamara Jernigan is the lady there in the bottom left. John Grunsfeld, Wendy Lawrence. Wendy Lawrence is above Tammy, up there in the upper left. And Ron Parise, Sam Durrance. This was an astronomy mission, and Ron Parise and Sam Durrance were true astronomers, which is my love. And they had this telescope array in the payload bay that did all kinds of cool astronomy. In fact, you see the 3 stars of Orion above the telescope right there. And it was Astro 2, and because of Scooby-Doo rolling his R's on words like Rastro, this was part of their gag emblem, or you see their mission patch there in the back with Jupiter, Galaxy, and probing the universe. Very successful mission, Astro 2, and we posted that about it. Thank you, Tom Usiak, for sharing your picture with that. Once again, our show, we're going to have with us tomorrow will be Hugh Harris. Hugh Harris was the voice of NASA, their public information officer, and the assistant for a good 3 decades at the Kennedy Space Center. And we'll talk about some of these missions that had 8 women on these flights. Not every one of these flights had a woman. And here are 2 women. To the left is Jessica Meir, and Christina Cook is on the other, on the right. She spent 11 months on the space station. These 2 women are getting ready to do the first all-women extravehicular activity or spacewalk. They are Artemis astronauts, and in my book, my money's on one of these 2 ladies, Jessica Meir on the left or Christina Cook on the right, spelled K-O-C-H, to be the first woman on the moon. They're in training, actually, in desert situations. So can't wait for that to happen. A lot's going to happen this year to put that on track, including the rollout of the SLS. So, Gary, you're here to inspire women in all careers in space business. Give us a little idea of why, how you got interested in this. And here's his flyer. I apologize. I had a PDF printout that I should have consulted with our Trekkie Techie Jessica. That star's green. Oh, it's yellow. That's why you can see through it there. But get featured in Gary's upcoming book. So tell us about that, Gary, how you got inspired to do this.
Well, I've been inspired by the space program since pretty much my birth, I guess you could say. I was actually born back in '61, the day John Glenn went up.
February 20th.
Yes. And since then, I had some ideas and some thoughts about being an astronaut, but then decided other things were more
practical. We all wanted to be astronauts.
Yeah. And in fact, I can remember in the 70s, late 70s, watching the TV show Space 1999 and thinking, we went to the moon in less than a decade. We should be able to have a space station by, within 2 decades. And as everybody knows, we're getting ready to go back to the moon again. And it's been
52 years from Apollo 11, and December will be 50 years for Apollo 17.
Yeah. So what I also thought about doing is about 6-8 months ago, I came up with an idea to do a book on women in the space program. Not just astronauts, not just the famous, like Sally Ride and, Shannon Lucid and other female astronauts, but the women that were actually doing a lot of the normal, everyday type stuff, but didn't didn't become famous because of it. You know, one of the ladies that told me to come over here and talk to Mark was part of the Sow Sisters.
Yeah, Jean Wright. Thank you, Jean, for putting us in touch with Gary here. Yeah, she's been on our program, and the Sow Sisters sewed reentry blankets on the space shuttle, which is so weird to look at Atlantis. It's not like an aircraft like this aircraft behind us, a metal fuselage. It is it's got actual blankets on it.
Right.
But yeah.
But
so many people like Gene, and so you were inspired by the movie Hidden Figures too.
Said. Yes, that was. I came up with the idea and then saw this movie, and it was kind of like the universe telling me, this is definitely something you should be pursuing and try to get together, because I know there's a lot of women out there that were part of the program or are still part of the program, and I think that their story is worth telling. I don't know how true it is, but I had heard that the actor Jack Black, his mother actually helped with some of the engineering and some of the coding during the space program back in the 60s. I'm not sure if that's true, but I heard it.
Well, that's something to track down there as a writer. So Gary's looking for your story out there. You can submit your stories or inquiries to womeninsspacebook@gmail.com, womeninsspacebook@gmail.com, and or you can get a hold of us through the show here, and we'll get you in touch with Gary. By the way, we got Marty Winkle is my cameraman. I had given a shout out to Marty there, my co-producer running the Streamlabs board there. Have you got Gary's name at the bottom there, Marty?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There we are. Women in Space book at gmail.com is how to get a hold of Gary. Thank you, Marty. You have been involved in tell some of the stories that you've gotten. You said that you have had some inquiries about this. Tell us a few how some women have been inspired in the last decades. You were mentioning a few things when we were talking there.
Mostly it was watching a lot of the TV shows that have been out, like Star Trek, Next Generation, and the original Star Trek. If you look at one of the first times that Mae Jemison, I think she was the first
African
American
she was
astronaut. She's using on the show what became, or what looks like it became, an iPad. And I just wanted to put that put that kind of story together and have 50, 60 years from now, we're doing things that, some female engineer came up with, while she was, 11th or 12th grader, and she was inspired because of shows like that. And, life in general for society will be better for it. Sorry.
Go ahead. Capturing the tales to inspire young girls is no easy task, of course, and you've got limited number of women that have been involved. For example, of the 580 humans who've been circled the Earth, 580, the number of women are 68. That's less than 12%, Gary. Yeah. But it seems like we're going to catch up with that real quick. And you talk about in your flyer here that you want women from various backgrounds who took the plunge and weren't afraid to shoot for the stars.
Right. I've talked to a few ladies that, they think, for example, one of the ladies I talked to wrote a book about astronauts, more of in a fantasy type situation. And she's like, well, I'm not really, in the space program. I said, yes, but you are writing a story that's related to the space program. I personally think that should be included, and she's been thinking about it and hasn't got back with me yet. like I said, I would, when I first thought about this, I wasn't really thinking about, you know, I guess you would call it on the fringe. But then again, if it wasn't, for example, you know, Gene with the Sow Sisters, you know, the space shuttle would have had major problems coming back to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so even though some people might look at it and go, well, did that really contribute? I would say, yes, it did contribute. You know, and so I just wanted to make sure that all women that had some type of association with the space program had an opportunity to put their story out there.
Well, that's a good point, Gary, with Gary Gilbert, who is assembling a book about women in space. And Gary would love to hear from you to see if you've got an interesting story to feature or some sort of incidents or something that you'd like to share with Gary, or tell him someone that you know who would be a good story in his book. You can contact him at womeninspacebook@gmail.com. And Gary, you know, I'm thinking of some of the inspirational movies that are out there recently. Did you see the movie The Martian?
Yes.
Commander was a woman that
Right.
goes out to save him, you know,
Right.
jumping in a spacesuit. You can't jump in a spacesuit and seal yourself up. Someone needs to seal you in there. But
Right.
I'm thinking about that, and there's a lot of NASA advertising on the NASA channel about opportunities for women, and of course the STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math,
Right.
talking about that. Are you involved in some of those things?
A little bit. I actually have a master's degree in space management from a university over in France called International Space University. And part of my book, once it gets completed and hopefully, you know, becomes a bestseller, I plan on donating a percentage of the profits to the school as scholarships for women in the future.
Well, that's wonderful. Tell us a little bit about the International Space University. You said it's headquartered in France?
Right. It was started back in the middle 80s here in the States. They ended up in 1992 or 93 having a permanent campus in Strasbourg, France. And since then, you know, I went there back in 2011 to 2012 and have a master's, like I said, in space management.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, we have Ophelia watching us in Normandy, France. Ophelia. She's a big fan out there that loves to stay curious.
Oh, that's good.
So check out the International Space University. You mentioned in our little pre-production discussion a couple gentlemen that they may know out there in Stay Curious world that were involved with that. You asked me, and I didn't know those men.
Oh, one, he's with Singularity University, Peter Diamandis.
Okay, Peter Diamandis.
I may be pronouncing it wrong. I'm really bad with names. And Bob Richards, and I don't remember the third person, but the three of them, while they were in Boston back in the 80s, came up with the idea of what was first called a semester program that went on during the summer. And so various places around the world, they would pretty much have a 3-month program, and people from all over the world would come to it. And then, like I said, it got to be so popular that they decided to put together a master's program.
Wonderful. And you can apply some of that knowledge into, you said there's people working in the rocket renaissance companies, the Blue Origin and
Right.
SpaceX from International Space University.
Right. I would say there's probably, I don't know the exact number, but at least a half a dozen that are doing pretty well and are at various, you know, companies. You know, some of them are, I'll say, not senior management, but they're doing pretty well, and they're actually having a positive impact on the space, you know, the space program. And each of those guys, each of those companies, are better because they're there helping them out.
That's right. And Kennedy Space Center, Janet Petro is the new, she's been since a few months ago, replaced Bob Cabana as the center director out there. We've got calls into her to be on Stay Curious, Janet Petro's office. They're very cordial, but they need to get that Artemis out to the pad and launched before she's got time to talk to us. And there's a Kathy Luders, she's over the manned program of the Artemis astronauts. SpaceX CEO is a woman, Shotwell.
Yeah.
And they've got, so a lot of good management. But you know, Gary, the unsung heroes out there are people and a lot of women that are configuration management, the number crunchers that are tracking all of the parts and pieces and contractors' orders and the engineers, the engineering drawings and so forth.
Right.
That they're looking on there. Those are some people I hope you get an opportunity to talk to.
Yes, exactly. That was the group of people that I wanted to focus on. Occasionally, maybe one or two astronauts, but a lot of people, a lot of women, or a lot of young girls, in the 8th, 9th grade, they got peer pressure to not go study engineering or whatever, and that's the reason that the STEM and STEAM programs are hurting for women, is because as a society we've somewhat led them a different way. And my goal here is to get it so that the first person, say, on Mars is a woman.
Well, the stereotypes are coming down. It's been slow process from some people like Eileen Collins, whose book is Breaking the Glass Ceiling,
Right.
To Space, becoming the first pilot and the first commander. Our friend Jonathan Ward has wrote a book about her, and we've talked to her a couple times. I've talked to her personally. She's very busy to get her on. But yes, you've got Joanne Morgan, the only woman in the launch control during Apollo 8's launch in 1969. And now I'm pleased to see when I see a SpaceX launch or there's a lot of women at the
Right.
controls in there, as well as NASA's space station control room in Houston. When you see that, there's a lot of females in
Right.
the controls there. And that's who Gary wants to hear from, is people like yourself. Gary he's writing a book, Women in Space, and hoping that your story will help girls become interested in a STEAM career at an early age. And have you talked to schools about this, Gary? What is your what else are you doing to facilitate your research?
Well, I've actually, my daughter happens to be a teacher over in Seminole County, and right now she's in the process of getting me some names and stuff to talk to about being able to, once the book's published, come in and talk to them, at the school itself. Right now she's just trying to find out, who's the best person to get in touch with. But I plan on, going out and actually talking to like companies like Scholastic. They publish a lot of books for schools, and just different ones like that.
Well, good. We've enjoyed a little conversation here with you about you wanting to do this. I think it's there's a lot of books about astronauts, men and women. There's a lot of not cartoon books, but illustrations for kids about women
Right.
in space.
Right.
But not many out there. What Gary wants to do is provide some chapters of women's inspirational stories. Have you heard any that stick out in your mind as we're wrapping up here?
This is the ones I've got so far. I really can't pick one, mainly because it's different ideas, different reasons, but it's inspirational, no matter what, though. So at this point, I don't really have one that sticks out more than the rest.
All right, cool. Thank you, Marty. Marty handed me a couple of people we got watching. Is Judith Page is watching, Laura Paula. Hello, Laura. Waverly Patrick, Michael Rothman, Adam Kress, Timothy Gobble, Ashley Connell. Wow, those are some new names, Marty. There's Ophelia in Normandy. Humberto is watching. Humberto Lopez is in Colombia. Daniel Lazzarini is at he's in Europe. Daniel's at a astronomy complex there. Adrian Padrick, Christopher Mick is watching in Wisconsin. Any of your friends on there? Ezos Nava, Robert Milton, Paul Forrester, Cliff. Hey, Cliff is in Australia. Cliff Watson, Carlton Bailey. Carlton Bailey, I'm going to push some of your wonderful launch photos on our Facebook when I'm done here, Carlton.
I think Michael Rothman, I think it was Michelle.
Oh, Michelle Rothman. Okay. Wow, Michelle, thank you very much, Marty, there. Daniel Lazzarini asks for the March liftoff of Artemis. Okay. He was just wondering if it was worth coming here to watch the launch, Marty. Is it better to stay at home and see it or see it on TV? Well, it depends how many you've seen in my case. And, the night launches are something of their own. You can't see the vehicle. It's cool to watch night turned into day. Right. How would you answer that? Is it worth coming here to Space Coast to watch a launch? Now, the launch of Artemis, now come on, anything that's the first time is going to be spectacular, and you're looking at a Saturn V power there, about 1 million more pounds than Saturn V. So what do you say to Daniel Lazzarini there?
Well, I actually was out here and worked at the Cape when SpaceX was sending up probably the first, I don't know, well, but let's just say 2015, 2014. And each and every one I was here for, I was glad I was there. It's just seeing that much power, that much engineering, that much dedication going into space is awesome.
The moment, just the countdown, the moment, and the people in the crowd is worth it too.
I'd say each and every time.
Yeah.
In fact, I live now in Merritt Island, and I've gone out and watched them, take off from my house, and I'm thinking I should have been, over at the Cape. I should have been, even closer. So, I'd give anything to be back there and being able to see them, up close.
Yep. Well, we get pretty close here. In fact, we're just 9 miles from the launch pad where Artemis is going to fly to the moon, and 9 or 10 miles from pad 41, where this launch behind us here that Mike Killian took. Mm-hmm. Daniel Lazzarini is in Venice, is in Italy. Thank you, sir, for watching in your evening there. And we know that Robert Law is watching in Dundee, Scotland. I'll bet Hazel Banks is watching from Merritt Island. She's a good friend of ours, good friend of mine. Dave Stang's up in Michigan. Just about a month to go, everybody, before the spring equinox, when you can really feel like thawing out. But doggone it, we've had some nice weather here lately, the last couple of days.
That's one of the reasons I'm here.
Yeah, me too, and this Space Museum. Yeah. Anything that I didn't ask you, Gary, that you'd like to share about your Women in Space book? If you worked in the space program, email Gary at womeninsspacebook@gmail.com and hook up with him, and maybe it's a paragraph, maybe it's 4 or 5 pages you want to send him there about what you did. He's looking forward to researching that and helping to inspire the next generation of women to just not walk on the moon, but there's all kinds of good paying jobs out there. Forget that ballerina stuff and the liberal arts, right? Go be an engineer, girls. Is that what you're saying?
That's pretty much what I'm saying.
All right. Well, Gary, thank you for being here. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything
thank you
else
for
to
having
tell
me.
our Stay Curious friends?
No, just like I said, shoot for the stars.
All right. Thank you very much. We can't thank enough our there's our first women that shot for the stars. Our astronauts chosen in 1983 for the space shuttle program there. All of them flew one successful mission in space. And we'd like to thank the Hyatt Place on Route 1, just down the road from us here, for sponsoring the Hyatt Place Studios here inside the American Space Museum. Yes, Marty?
Carlton reminded us that there's a launch tomorrow, SpaceX launch at 9:34, I think he has 9:35.
Okay. He's interested, not interrupting, but yes, the SpaceX launch 9:35 in the morning?
Mhm.
Okay. And that's another batch of Starlink satellites. And that's a great picture that we shared of Mike Killian there. I was going to share it, and Marty put it up there on the green screen. Pretty cool picture, isn't it, Gary?
Yes, it is. Most definitely.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Hyatt Place, for sponsoring our studio here and the good things that we're going to do there. We'll start talking about next week. Tomorrow, we will have with us Hugh Harris, the one and only, one of the voices of NASA. And we might even talk a little NASCAR on the show tomorrow with the March shuttles, and Hugh Harris here tomorrow with me, Marquette, to bridge the space between us. We'll see you tomorrow.